Hello comrades and welcome to another video. Before I move on to the Izyum counteroffensive, I want to quickly talk about an update on the Bakhmut front. After the Russians successfully captured Kodema, they held an operational pause and now they are pushing towards Mykolaiivka Druga, Mykolaiivka and Site 7 from the south. So they're moving in three directions, which is the flower move. Further up north at the Izyum counteroffensive, there is a lot of news. So starting at the north, the Ukrainians managed to capture Hrushivka and Starovirivka and are now pushing towards Kupiansk. And the Russians have decided that enough is enough and they sent a lot of reinforcements. So if we draw the lines of movement as of right now, the Ukrainians are moving southwards to Vishneva and eastwards towards Vasily. So they are advancing to it from two sides, and the Russians are meeting them in the field to prevent their advances. They managed to capture this whole area next to the Oski River, but they decided to blow up this bridge, and allegedly they've blown up this one as well. But looking closer in, there is no indication that it would stop any crossing, as the river seems very shallow. They could just pass through these other areas. But since the rain hasn't started and it's been very dry recently, the levels of the water is probably low enough for the Russians to pass through without any bridges, similarly to how the Ukrainians passed through from the western side. And in case the river levels are a bit higher than them just being able to do so without any issue, then there is still there's always the option for the Russians to place some rocks at the bottom of it to form a underwater bridge for them to cross through for where their tires will be. So generally, I don't see this as an issue. However, we see here that this one has been blown up. And then further south, this one is still operational. So Russian reinforcements are mainly coming from the east, where they are pushing southwards towards through this bridge and then pushing northwards to fight here and try to cut off the Ukrainian forces by cutting into the road and taking control of that. They are also moving towards Izyum itself as well as Kunche and pushing towards these areas here where they will be fighting the Ukrainians. At the same time, further up north, they are moving towards Kupiansk to reinforce the city before the Ukrainians arrive, allowing them to fight against them. And finally, they are still fighting for Shevchenkove. So generally, we see the Russians in all of these areas reinforcing and pushing the Ukrainians from every side, meaning that generally they want to stop the Ukrainian advance now, and they will not allow them to push further. Any further pushing is that the Russians are fighting but losing, where prior to this, it was mostly that the Russians were retreating without a fight, as this is their strategy so far, where they want to save human life rather than take territory or give up territory. They're prioritizing human life over territory. As for the Ukrainians' line of attack, we see that they're pouring a whole lot of forces into the north. They really want to take Kupiansk, which will allow them to take control of these main roads. Afterwards, they will be pushing south to take Bakhmut, which will allow them to completely cut off Izyum from supplies and push further south to encircle the city. So generally speaking, the Ukrainians need 1 and 2 areas for their operation to succeed, while the Russians need to push through this whole area, this main road to Volokhiv Yar. If they take Volokhiv Yar and Shevchenkove, then they're able to completely encircle the Ukrainian forces in this operation. So each side needs 2 cities, and they have to fight through a lot of territory to get those. So the situation is very stable, or even right now, meaning that either side could come out, make it out on top, and the other side will have a very difficult time to come back from such a situation, as the Ukrainians are pouring in their best troops that they have available into this operation and the best equipment, while the Russians have a 20,000 strong division in Izyum. A quick note on the reinforcements who are arriving into the Izyum area. It is reported that it is the Third Army, which was the army that was specifically created for this military operation or the invasion. It consists of volunteers from all over the country, and then they had 3 months of training, after which they were deployed to Rostov, and since then they hadn't been in action. However, it seems that their insignia is the one that is on the equipment that is being moved towards the Izyum front. Their training officers were veterans from this war, fighting the Ukrainians in the southern front of, or northern front of the Donbass region and southern front of the Kharkiv region. While at the same time, if the Ukrainians manage to take back the Izyum area, they will be able to push the Russians out of Liman as well, most likely, as they will be able to conduct a similar operation. However, this Oski River defensive line makes it way more difficult than what Izyum had to defend itself. As you can see, there's mainly forests here, which is why the Ukrainians decided to push from the north instead of from the south or from the west. Of course, this whole area is mostly open, so that they could push from here. However, there will be a river crossing around Izyum, and they have to fight through the bulk of the Russian division that is positioned there, while from the north they're able to cut off the supplies and encircle them rather than fight inside the city, which will be way more efficient and less costly than fighting inside the city, where the Russians can just keep supplying them. So generally speaking, with their goal, they are taking the right approach and the right plan, and the Russians are using their same plan, which is actually a complaint I have for the Russian army, is that they have a deck of 50 cards, but they keep pulling the same card over and over again. At some point, the Ukrainians are going to outplay and outmaneuver that card, and then they will have to pull up new cards, but because they have pulled that one card so much, they won't be able to essentially conduct a successful operation on the level of this one card that they keep pulling over and over again. So that's the situation on the Izyum counteroffensive. I think the Bakhmut front will continue being, or the Donbass front continue being as stable as it has been, as there are a lot of news coming every so often, especially around Pisky. The fighting is very intense in this area. However, the defensive line is still as well fortified as it has been. However, with the collapse on either front, it will dramatically change the situation and the power balance within these other front lines. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. It's free, and well, most of you aren't subscribed. So thank you very much to all my viewers, to everyone who subscribed, and to everyone who will subscribe. Thank you very much, and have a great day.